We're continuing our lesson on incorporating open strings. And in this part 2 lesson, I want to show you now some of the forms that can be used to incorporate open strings in your playing. So let me put this up. The word cage is an important word in understanding guitar fretboard theory. So one of the things it represents is it's the 5 open major keys that you can play on your guitar. So C is the key of C, or the open chord shape of C. A, G, E, and D. So we're going to look at each one of these and then see what the open strings are. You remember, we're looking for the 1s and or the 5s to find out which shape will allow you to incorporate these and where to. So let's look at the C form. So the C chord open looks like this. I also want to draw these 2 notes, which are also played, not fretted. So if you look, these 2 in the C chord, and by the way, this means not only is this the C chord, but you're playing in the key of C. Remember, so this would be the 1 chord of whatever you're playing will be a C chord. So this note right here happens to be a 5 note. This one here is a 3 note. So remember, you're looking for 1s and 5s. Now, a 3 can work, and it'll sound kind of cool at places, but for this lesson only, let's just look at 1s and 5s. So if you're playing in the key of C, or using a capo and using a C form in a different key, the ideal open string you want to bounce notes off of, or other chord notes off of, is this G string right there. Okay? That's what the C form will allow you to do. Now let's look at the next one. Let's look at the A form. The A form has this open, and has these 3 notes fretted and this one open. So this low A note is a 1. This high E note is a 5. So you do have the 1 and 5. However, there's a kind of an issue that occurs when you're playing the 1s and 5s low, like in this example. So if you were to play chords in the key of A and keep this note, A note, open, what you're going to get is a droning bass note that kind of never changes. And instead of changing chords, it almost becomes changing, and they're written almost as slash chords where 1 is always at, you might get like a 5/1 chord, 4/1, that type of a thing, 6/1. And it's gonna have a certain sound that it will work, but it's not the kind of sound that I'm talking about when talking about incorporating open strings. So the ideal note in the A form would be this high E string open here, 5. Okay, the key. There's a little challenge to this though, is if you're fretting this B string or this G string and trying to keep this open, your fingers have to make sure they're not going to touch this open E string, and that could be a challenge. You're going to have to really play on the very tips of your fingers, but it is doable with practice. All right, let's look at the next open chord or key. So the key of G. key of G would put the one chord as a G chord, which you can play this open, but that's going to have a traditional sound. Let's play the modern way here. So this would be a modern way to play a G chord. So you have two open strings here. This one, this D string, is a 5 note, and this G string is a 1 note. Now this G chord or G form is probably the most ideal key or shape to play in because of where these 1s and 5s land. Now this 1 here is open G. That will be open. You can actually use these two notes, the B and E, to be able to incorporate either chord tones or lead lines along with this one note, and it'll sound very modern. This is done all the time in the modern leads that we hear, especially in the modern worship songs that that's kind of popular right now. Super popular. So these are the two strings. You could pick both, or you can just pick the 1, or you can pick the 5. Doesn't matter. They're going to all sound a little bit different, but that's where creativity comes to place. Very ideal. Next form is the E form. Now the E form, or the E chord, looks like this. This is one way actually. There's many ways. But it's got 3 open strings. This one, which is an E, that's a 1. This one here, which is a 5, the open B, and this high E is a 1. Now, once again, this note here is not ideal because that's the lowest note on your guitar. And so all the chord changes will be kind of played as a slash chord with, droning low E note, which sounds cool again, but that's not kind of what I'm talking about. These two notes are very ideal. You can play 1 and 5 and use this D or G string to fret notes. And actually, if you go back and look at our 5 caged chord form families that I have, the key of E does exactly this. It incorporates these two notes open while all these notes up here, these thicker strings, change to create that modern sound. You can also do this with leads, but once again, you're going to have to play on your fingertips and avoid not dampening either this B or E string. But this is another great form to incorporate open strings with. And the last is the D chord, or the key of D, which would be this open, fretted, fretted, and fretted. You could technically play this A note here, but that inverts the chord and it kind of sounds a little weird. And so for this lesson, let's just say there's only one open string, which is this one, and that happens to be a 1 in the D form or D key. Once again, that's the lowest note of these chord changes. So it's going to have that droning type of bass note feel, which can work. But, it's doable. So there you go. 5 open forms and the 1s and 5s and where they're located for you to be able to kind of use your imagination to create these open string sounds. By the way, this is not only with chords, but it's also with little leads, your swells. Everything is going to sound more modern if you incorporate an open or open strings.